Okay, this will be probably part C or D of clubs. We broke it up maybe a little too soon. Page 110 of this very good printed version with double space. Another ironically instrumental club in my development was the Prevost Center over on Reed Road. This was one of those beehives as a black center of activities on Reed Road. Down the street was the Davis Barbecue, and further up the street was a place called the Green Parrot, run by Big John. I worked in all of these places, but it was the Prevost Center that was the smallest, that I met the most people that humbled me as a musician and helped me to meet the right people in Houston. It was here that Joe Nettles took me to eat the best shrimp in town and see the prettiest girls. I have a misprint there. And play the best music. This place was no more than 30 by 50 feet, and we would easily squeeze 150 people in there on a Sunday afternoon to get the best entertainment. It'll be the perfect scene for a movie. We even had a ventriloquist named Larry that I recorded at Jackie's Hideaway around the corner over on Belford. He doubled as a pretty good drummer. I believe I met Trudy Lynn here and T99, as well as my favorite drummer of all times, probably Willie Pickett. Wow, and I say that because he got me a gig. Wow, what a feel he had and never missed a beat. He got the work too. He got me work, as I said, in the ballroom next to the Green Parrot. There were many clubs to come and go in Houston, but none came close to the to assembling the talent and atmosphere and wholeness as these. This was my church after church, and I gave them respect, the respect that they warranted. The great whore could not have her way in any of these institutions. For some reasons, this personality was either not welcome or did not find it her cup of tea to come in and destroy what God had put together. Oh my goodness. We just love it. We love it. We love the clubs. Here we go. I need to give a prescription. I need to give a description of pizzazz in order for my blank people to paint you the picture. Come in and see these mirrors everywhere. To the immediate left is the 30-foot bar, mirrored from top to bottom with mirrors in the back and mirrors over and under the ceiling over the bar. Step down as you walk in on a red carpet with both sides of the walkway mirrored and with to the right mezzanine mirrored as well as the ceiling mirrored. There are LED lights running under the steps of blue and red colors, making a difference between them. The support beams within the club itself are mirrored. The stage is mirrored around its 30-foot circumferential half arc. The back door was mirrored, as well as the DJ booth to the left of the stage, all in mirrors. No club will ever be like this one, if you will, but possibly not, okay? But you will see and hear Jazz and Pizzazz and hear of Miss Pizzazz that we show you videos later. You will hear the late Tully Evans speak in videos later. You'll see the microphone and possibly be able to come up to the microphone as we recreate this in an augmented reality experience. And this is going to be something that we'll try to do, okay? Only because it'll be good to document it somewhere in history that a lot of politicians came and were members, and a lot of things happened, positive, I do believe, out of Pizzazz. Now, was the great whore there? Girls from all over the nation came in there somehow hearing of this fantastic place. Well, it was orchestrated. It was here that I was hired on Sunday to pull off Jazz at Pizzazz and film the Miss Pizzazz night. again, I was one of the few with a videotape camera at work that was outside of television, of course. I believe it was Tuesday night that we had Miss Pizzazz. If I have my way with this book, you will have virtual reality access to this club to come in and hear videotape performances and songs from that era on your big screen or with your glasses. You know, this is kind of interesting that I had already said that, and I forgot that I said that. This is page 113 of the book, and I will tell you this. This was written in maybe 2008, and it's 2018, 10 years later to the day that I'm dictating this, that I'm transcribing this, that I'm giving you this video. So, go figure. After finishing that job, I would go to the Gallant Night on Holcomb and finish things up doing jazz only. On Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we gave the owner a deal at the Winners Club on Fannin. We had a similar group on vocals until Friday. These performances are videotaped. It was here that I picked up a pistol and trying to stop an undercover person from sitting in who could not play and trying to bogart his way in. When we went outside, it was at this place that I got my first ticket to the jail. They were going to throw it out. One wanted to throw it out, one didn't, of course, who was with the person who they sent in, but it was all orchestrated. On Saturday evening, we went to the Black Stallion to play to that club. I collected a gross of about $1,700, only to pay myself about $40 total for the whole thing after expenses. Everything broke down after going to jail for carrying that pistol that happened at the Winners, outside the Winners. Before we stopped that scheduling, while I was winding up my fellowship at this time, having come out again early from the training, a total of 27 to 30 people were paid weekly to perform, including Arnett Cobb, Kurt Whalum, and it was only for the love of music that I'd do it again. All of it, but guess what? Not now, I'm too old. The highlight is a recording of Don Wilkerson doing Angel Eyes. Hopefully you'll be able to see that in the future with us having doing. The next thing is education, music and radio recording, the resurrection of Peter's production. During the early 80s, Houston was blessed to have a dedicated radio jazz personality. Let's call him Nate. He supervised the jazz calendar and was able to solicit donations and contributions to the stations. It was a part of the University of Houston, and it was all the wannabes on how to keep up their game. It allowed for that to happen. This created plenty of work in the clubs, like Bird Watchers, Pizzazz, Gallant Night, the Winners, as I said earlier, Davis Barbecue, Garcia's, Rockefellers, the Black Stallion, the 2015 Maine Club, another one that was over on Maine, I can't remember the name of it, where Claudia Burson played, of course, and I've mentioned the one that was in the funeral home already, Paradise Born Grill. He had two other people working for him and had a dedicated salsa jazz night with Juan Flores. Let's call him Juan Flores. Yeah, from that I forgot he was over there because Juan is still at KPFT. Anyway, I believe, and Becky Wise was able to do the commercially leaning jazz at that time. Becky Wise, the whole artistic straight ahead jazz was left up to him. He was quite knowledgeable about the scene and the artist still living due to his past residence being in New York. He was happily married and stable along those lines as far as I knew. One of his dedicated venues was Rockefeller's. I believe he got some cut off the liquor, ain't none of my business, but it was here that the major jazz artists of all time were booked. Stan Getz. It's here that I saw Freddie Hubbard also and recorded him Doing the straight ahead. We asked for Dolphin Dance. He played it right up. He said, what do y'all want me to play? I saw Sonny Rollins here, who knew me as a Doc, thanks to Les Taird and his brother. Of course, the others that were more commercial than I saw later were Jeff Larber, who I really loved a lot, Kenny G, the early saxophone players whose name escapes me now, that played soprano after that. George Howard was one of them. And he's played, I never will forget, with Severe Headaches for a show promoted by Steve Crane, who eventually died at KTSU, who was the MC nevertheless for this show. And it ended up that he had a brain metastasis from colon cancer. One of the night's booking included Stanley Turrentine, who was reported as ill and did not show up. Guess who played the first set while waiting for a word? Thank you, yours truly. I'm still waiting on my payment. And also Sylvester LeBlanc. A second set, I have extensive video from this, of that, basically played the second set, Sylvester LeBlanc. Nate eventually made some missteps dealing, and I say Nate, his name was Dave Edwards, eventually made some missteps dealing with cocaine. The consequence was the end of the artistic jazz at this time. He was given an ultimatum, from what I heard, they say, and in spite of just collecting over $50,000 on a fund drive for a new board, this is what we were needed, right? This is what we needed. He and his wife left and have only remotely been heard of from since. When he left the station, it went classical. Pizzazz was one of the most elaborate clubs that I played in my life. The key to it that it was used was small mirrors. I already described that, but it was inside the Loop at the Highland Park Shopping Center. It was built out by a KC, Kansas City native and TSU alumnus who had developed a relationship with Ray Barnett and other clubs like the Baby Grand, the Big Apple, and others on Griggs Avenue like the Screaming Eagle. He raised the money using OPM. If you don't know what that is, you better ask your mama. He would later come to Dallas and do the same thing, realizing that the average club life was 2 to 3 years to pack them in 5 at the most, to pay for everything. Only organizations could spend as much as $1 million on build-out like Sambuca's, due to their intent on staying and locked-in lease rates. I have no idea what the build-out cost was, but what was for Pizzazz. I do know they used inexpensive but good Hispanic labor. The sound system was put in by Evans Music Company, and there existed a time lapse, according to my good friend Steve, who is still at Evans, which is about ready to close now at this dictation. And I think that's going to have to end it, or do we want to go ahead and go? Okay, musicians and such in Columbia, Missouri. Let's go to that, which I think I've already covered in the ghetto band. I think I've already covered that. We've got education, community work in town that we could cover, but it's not in here. And basically, we look like we're just moving forward at page 18 and 19. Okay, so that's going to do it for this one. We thank you. We know that you are great. You're mighty. And before we stop, I do see something here that may be good to tag on the end of this. Not being rooted and grounded was a choice I was making. And I say that, not being rooted and grounded spiritually. As I look back on it, I was not aware of the need for an active ministry in the community. In many respects, I was living off the fumes of my grandmother's prayers. We call her Mother Jones prayer, but also on the works without faith aspects of black nationalism. Straddling the fence of the two, as well as pursuing the applause of man and putting the word of God on a back burner, was a prescription for failure. I was vulnerable to the winds of doctrine that were floating around in Columbia, Missouri. I needed either a life coach or a good wife. Yet without either, there was no excuse because I was exposed to the proper aspect of spirituality long before being in St. Louis. It was in St. Louis that my mother insisted that I go to Sunday school, along with my sister, from about 1959 until I graduated from high school in 1970. Of course, First Baptist had its controversies, including putting preachers out for little or nothing. This did trickle down to us as children, and I'll say was almost like child abuse for us to see a preacher be taken out when we did like the guy. We loved him. But it ended up being, as far as the structure is concerned, I can understand why preachers take such a high hand. But most of the controversy centered around the preacher versus the business office controlling the budget. I can remember being involved in Easter plays, and I still have the Bible that I was given by Miss Scruggs in 1959 in Sunday school. Miss Mary Stansel was the pillar of the music department, and I'm in touch with her children on Facebook even to this day. I could see her now as she stood up from her piano bench, bending over lightly to play double-handed chords. It was here that I was home trained, as well as home learned in music and learned to pray, yet not really knowing that the fanatics were the ones who had a sound relationship with Jesus Christ. I say fanatics, we're going to find out what I'm talking about. It was not until years later that I reinitiated a start in a relationship with Jesus Christ within the community of Columbia, Missouri. I went to one of those old foot-stopping small country churches way back in the woods of Columbia, Missouri. You know, the kind of church that allows the preacher to tell your business either from prophecy or gossip within the congregation after carousing Saturday night. You know what I'm talking about. As I said earlier, due to my activities with the Blackout newspaper, as well as the Legion of Black Allegiance, we had a works without necessarily faith type of attitude. You better have works. It was a type of working out your guilt trip to a degree on the part of the petty bourgeoisie blacks from all the parts of the United States. In spite of mandates for community activity given by the national organization leadership, the overwhelming mandate of Greek leadership was to haze. They were hazed, and so they desired to haze. Nevertheless, as I look back on it, deltas and omegas tended to have more sincere maintenance of sincere community works within Texas, at least after graduation, and elsewhere possibly as a result of faith with works involvement in their local churches. All other Greek activity represented independent of the church, to my observation, has been for show only, including foot stomps and all that unnecessary stuff. And I would appreciate your prayers for my judgment and me judging these acts. In spite of all this war, if you will, that was going on in me and in my environment between pursuing the world and its things, namely instinctual sexual desire, trying to look good at other men, looking good in front of other men, I should say, and women, with respect to pride issues also, as well as attempting to establish a practice here in Houston and continuing my education of music improvisation, played immensely in my development in 1986 through in 1981, when I got out of training, all the way till now, if there's any medical practice going on. I moved on in Houston. I did not go to church. One time in Houston, Texas, I sought gospel music preaching as I hit Houston. Again, I was still under a works necessary, if you will, for real faith type of understanding. I really got upset when I had heard that Che Guevara got killed in Bolivia. So I found myself with my good friend Deborah Wright being led to Reverend Johnson at the old Holman Street Baptist Church. I visited Wheeler Avenue, but it appeared too stuffy and unfriendly until I was wooed by Jeremiah Wright, Walter Scott Thomas, as I've said before, and the Whalums, who came regularly, Kenneth Whalum and Junior and Senior. Margie Walker of KTSU approached me to do a community service show in the studio. It was here that on an obstetric rotation, which was within the third month that I was here in Houston in 1978, still, let's see, July, August, September. In September, we broadcast live from the KTSU studio, which was a full 10 watts. And we did a remote broadcast from the Jefferson Davis Hospital, answering questions on all aspects of medicine at that time. I even remember answering the stupid know-it-alls question related to organic versus inorganic compounds, you know, about carbon and hydrogen stuff. I was also quoted in articles by Margie Walker, who wrote for The Defender, trying to give some type of natural cure for those who could not get into their doctor to help their blood pressure. All of this was a Works Without Faith initiative that I had after just arriving in Houston in 1978. Still, no real relationship with the Lord. To complicate matters, after going through a very disorganized period of not being able to smile for what seemed like 9 months, I sought answers to questions that I had relative to church at the Unity School of Thought. There were friendly people there. They even made more friendly. They were even more friendly than Windsor Village, which I was also visiting at that time. I went to the 12 noon Bible study at Windsor, and that was also the Saturday 6 p.m. service with Hank Neal as music director, who had the church rocking. There was something in the preaching, though, that was unique at the Unity School of Thought from Ron. We studied the 12 powers of man corresponding to the 12 apostles, and each of them that they have. I never will forget Peter was power in the tongue, and that meant that you had the power not to talk when you weren't supposed to. It wasn't so much giving you the power to do something, it was giving you the power not to do something. We also studied about the true meaning metaphysically of every word in the first through third chapters of Genesis. Every word. It was a rush, and it gave me something to do. I was able to smile in no time after digesting the positive and leaving the negative to the side. Even if I had put under the hoodoo from a baby mama drama, I reconciled that it was necessary for my spiritual development. In other words, to go through that wilderness in order to really know what the promised land was. I smiled at reading Hebrews chapter 6, revealing that only true sons of God are disciplined. If God sent this at me, it must be good. Prior to going to the Saturday 6 p.m. Wednesday service, I attended St. Mary's at 6 p.m. over on Rosedale and Ennis. Under the influence of those oppressive times, with the spiritual funk upon me, I even attended to St. Peter's over on OST near Scott, going with the Beaumont, Texas native that I still love to the day. Hey, Viney. It was she who brought her big boy husband over to my second office to get his ear treated for an infection coming up in a white Rolls Royce. And I'm talking about Johnny Binder, later known as, Johnny Jeremiah. So we want to thank God, from whom all blessings flows, for these few words that we've had time to put into motion. We hope that you gleaned something about it. I think I had a couple of pages misplaced, so we'll get that corrected in the transcript. Hey, if you would like, we'll read it again and add it to your personal collection. But these are the entries that we're going to be giving. It started on page 91, and we ended up going to 126, and of course 121.